Darkhaven. You may remember my husband and I had our silver wedding back in May last year, and at the time I did a video about the present that I made for him, which was the shadow box with the silver lining and all the flowers and things on it. And I also made him a card, a special card, but what with everything else that was going on, it was a very busy year. I never got round to doing a video about that, or even uploading the photos to the internet. So I thought I'd remedy that situation now and show you the card that I made. And this is the card. And it was made using scraps of fabric which I had in my scraps box all these years, which had actually been when I made my wedding dress, and I saved the different scraps. So I've got the white Moire taffeta, which the dress was made of, and the lace which was over the top of the bodice, and then the accents which were in the pale blue satin, and then the embroidery in silver, and the blue pure silk floss, and the little Indian mirrors which are called Shi-sha, little mirror work part there. And the card itself is done on a background of this dull silver, and I had to put two pieces together, and so there's actually a join there, but I think that doesn't show too much. And then a dark blue, quite heavy cardstock on the front, and then the silver mirror card. And the card part was all designed on Serif Draw Plus and cut with the Cricut. So I haven't done an actual video of the making of this because an awful lot of the work was just embroidery, which wouldn't have been very interesting to sit and watch me doing hour after hour. But I've made a video slideshow which will come up in a minute. On the inside I made a card insert, which was also is that the right place? Yes, that's right. Which I also did on the computer and printed out. And on this side there is a verse which I didn't write myself, but I managed to find on the internet, and I was thrilled with it because it actually said everything I wanted to say to my darling hubby. And it says, "Because in everything I do you always have a part. Because a loving thought of you is always in my heart. Because each little wish of mine you've tried to make come true. On this our day I want to say how dearly I love you." That really said it all for me. So I hope you enjoy the video slideshow coming up, and I'm sorry it's been so long in the making. It's over 6 months ago now.
Here's a selection of our wedding photos, just to give you an idea of what the dress was like. That I based the card on the design of the dress. On this first one you can see I'm sitting in my mother's bedroom looking in the mirror, so you've got a little bit of view of the back view of the dress, and you can see that there are some strap-like pieces which are attached at the waist so that they hang down loose. You can see them again on this picture where I'm with my bridesmaids, and they've got the embroidery on them which you will see on the card, same sort of shape, same sort of pattern. And again on that one you can see the straps hanging down. You can see the touches of blue and silver embroidery on the collar and on the headdress. And on that one you can see the dress full length as I've come down the stairs. In this first photograph you can see the materials that I got ready before I started making the card. Having had a good rummage in my bits box, and I found the various fabrics that I'd used for my wedding dress. And at the back you can see the pale blue satin that I used for the accents, and then a little bit further forward was some silver fabric. Well, I didn't actually use that in the end, I used silver card on the card project. And in the foreground is on the left is the white Moire taffeta which I made the main part of the dress with, and on the right is some white lace which was used for the bodice of the dress, and then lying on top you've got a little spool of silver thread which I used for some of the embroidery, and 3 shades of blue pure silk floss which were used for the rest of the embroidery, and the little Indian Shi-sha mirrors just on the left of that, and they're quite rough around the edges, and it was quite tricky to sew those on. The silk floss was given to me by a friend who was given it by somebody who used to be in a convent that was closing, and she gave her a huge bag of all this beautiful silk embroidery floss, and they used it for making vestments and altar frontals and all sorts of things with. And my friend was a keen embroiderer, so she gave it to her, and then my friend said to me, "I've got far too much here, would you like some?" So she gave me a whole lot as well, so I decided to use some of it on my wedding dress. On the second photo you can see the card pieces cut out ready to make the card. This is the front part of the card, so this will be matted and laid onto a dull silver background, which we'll see later. The main part of it is quite a heavy dark blue cardstock, and the rest of it is done with silver mirror card, and I designed all those different shapes on Serif Draw Plus, and then cut them with the Cricut. Then on this next photo you can see that I've made up the embellishments, so the 25 which will go at the bottom of the card, and the 2 hearts with our initials in. And if you look carefully at the hearts, the silver mirror card top part that I've cut out, you can see that I've done a little bit of hand embossing where the 2 hearts overlap to make them look as if they're entwined, which obviously you can't do when it's cut from a single piece. But I hope that gives that impression. And here's the aperture of the card with the hearts on the top, and you can see that there's the silver mirror card gives a nice little edge to the aperture. And here it is with the 25 on it, and this is a mock-up with the fabrics and the first little bit of embroidery that I've done, and that central part is the same shape as the strap-like pieces that came down from the waistband of my wedding dress. And here are the embroidery materials already. Again, we've got the silk floss. You can see the 3 different shades of blue, going from very dark blue to a brighter blue. The silver thread and some chenille needles that I use for embroidering with, and the first little bit of embroidery that I've done with a bit of Moire taffeta, which is appliqued onto some pale blue satin with the silver thread with chain stitch, and then little Shi-sha mirrors on the right. In this next one you can see the Shi-sha mirrors being put on. The ones at the bottom are complete, the top ones they're just held on with a single strand of thread, just so that you can see how they're held in place. They don't have any holes in them, so they actually have to be held in place by the embroidery itself. You can see the scissors and the needles, and on the right the little bag with the Shi-sha mirrors in. And they're quite rough around the edges, and the silk floss is very, very fine. The slightest roughness on your fingers, it will snag, so it was quite difficult to work with, and it had a tendency to break as well. It was very, very difficult. And so I had to put my thumbnail over the edge of the mirror every time I pulled the thread through, because it was just dragging on there and snagging. So it wasn't the easiest project in the world to do. On this next photo you can see the Moire taffeta with the a piece of lace over the top, and on the right you can see a little bit of the blue silk floss. I've just started doing the line of embroidery across, and I don't know whether you can see on this photo, but I've used a herringbone stitch just in white cotton, just to to sew the two layers of fabric together, but that will be covered up by the embroidery. And the whole thing is lying on top of the dull silver card, which is the basis for the whole card. And this is the little embellishment for the centre of the embroidery. That's complete now with all its little mirrors on. And here we are making progress with the chain stitch, and you can see I've used quite a short length of thread because it did tend to snag and break. That's the first row finished, and you can see I've just started on the second one. And that's 2 rows completed, and then below the first one I'm doing the final row, which is in the darkest blue, and this is covering up the herringbone stitching. And there we are, halfway through the final row. And that's the blue silk floss embroidery completed. And there we have a mock-up with the 2 pieces of fabric with the blue silk floss embroidery, the chain stitch, and the lace. I've cut behind the lace, I've cut away the Moire taffeta, and I've overlaid the lace onto a piece of silver card. And on that one you can see where I've peeled back the lace. I've put some strips of double-sided tape on to hold that in place. It's not a mirror card, it's a not very shiny silver card. And there it is. That's stuck down now. You can see how the silver shows through the lace. And there's the another mock-up with the central motif just pinned in place, ready for me to start stitching it down. And on that picture it's just been caught down with just some white thread just to hold it in place, ready to put some embroidery around. And on that you can see that I'm doing the silver chain stitches a little bit done on the right, just to where the lace is, and that's the same as the chain stitch around the central part. And there it is with the chain stitch all the way around, so that now is complete. And there it is with the silver card underneath. And as a final touch, I did a little fringe of beads. They're just attached along the top edge. Oh, you can see underneath the row of silk floss chain stitch attaching the 2 pieces of fabric together, I put another row of chain stitch in silver, and then I put the little fringe of beads along there. They're little teardrop shaped silver beads with a round bead on the end of each one. And there it is attached. The embroidery is all complete. It's all attached inside the aperture of the card. And there's the card completed with the 25 on it, and then it's matted and layered onto some dull silver card, which forms the whole card itself. And I did put a little bit of padding in behind the embroidery in the aperture, so that it does just stick out a little bit. It gives it a bit more dimension. And in this final photo you can see it beside the present that I made for my hubby, and you can see that the colour scheme is the same throughout: the navy blue and the silver and the creamy white. And he was very pleased with it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed seeing this, and it has been rather a long time in the making.